right. Thanks everybody for tuning in and joining this True North Fantasy Football video session to talk what everybody's talking about in the industry right now, and that's the Scott Fish Bowl 10. I'm really excited to have two special guests to join the True North Fantasy Football crew. But let's talk about who's joining us from True North, and we've got the godfather of True North Fantasy Football himself, Trav, and we've got the stats master Ty joining us, and then just down the road from me in beautiful Niagara country, Gold Jacket QB himself, Mr. Jimmy Nastic. And then it is my pleasure to bring two fantastic guys on, super active in the community and veterans and guys that I look up to in this industry. We've got Mark joining us actually from Shanghai. And then just up the road from me is JD, the GOAT himself. And I'm super excited to have these two guys on, not only because they're awesome contributors to fantasy communities and just stand up individuals, but they've actually played in the Scott Fish Bowl. They've won divisions, and they bring a few years of experience with them. So really happy to have them aboard. And yeah, guys, it's an exciting time of year, isn't it?
100%. Hey, Mark. Hey, Mark, all the way in China there. Is it Shanghai noon or Shanghai night for you right now?
Oh, I like the Shanghai noon thing. It's
who doesn't love those movies?
Yeah, me and Jackie Chan hanging out.
Right on.
And for those of us that are joining that don't know what the Scott Fish Bowl is, it's a very cool charity fantasy football tournament, and it's the biggest in the world. So every year, and this year was about 10,000 applicants applied to join the Scott Fish Bowl, and this is the 10th year running. And really, Scott Fish, who created this, is really diligent and considerate of who he brings into this tournament. And really what he's looking for is people that are contributing back to the community, whether that be through charity, whether that be through great content, and always lending a helping hand out there in the fantasy football community. And his organization, Fantasy Cares, gives back to kids and buys toys for them. And really this year, with the situation that we're currently in, Scott's just kind of asked, hey, you know what, make a donation to whatever charity that you can, and just do some good in your community, because there's a lot of different things out there right now that could need our help. So Scott's tournament has always kind of pushed the boundaries in terms of some really cool rules, some really neat roster constructions. It's just things that we don't see every single day, and that's really what we're going to unpack today with our session with Mark and JD. So this year, 1,500 players will be in it. Guys, have you guys seen how many divisions that works out to? I guess I can do the math in my head, but it's been a long day.
I think it's 120 divisions, because I thought it was 1,440 people. But
Yep.
That might not factor in when Scott Fish, the saint of a human that he is, decided to up that number by adding some more leagues. So I can dig into that real quick as we go, Will, if you want to carry on, and I'll touch back in on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other cool thing is that Scott makes this really fun by changing up the themes every year. Last year was classic video games, which was pretty cool. But this year is something that's probably everybody can relate to, and that's toys. So all of those childhood toys that we played with, My Little Pony, G.I. Joe, Transformers, Hot Wheels, those things, all that kind of nostalgia that really connects us.
There you go, Ty.
Scott kind of taps into that. So would love to hear, gentlemen, where are we sitting? What divisions are we in, and who are some of the guys and girls that you're playing against?
I'll just get myself out of the way here, guys, and just mention that I have not been placed as of yet. Mark, I was hoping to get into the Hot Wheels division with you, my brother, but I just found out today on Twitter that I did not get into Hot Wheels. So needless to say, I'm anxiously awaiting where I'm going to be placed and who I'm going to be playing with. So Mark, why don't you talk about the Hot Wheels division, brother?
Yeah, well, I was thinking design primarily for my division. So I didn't want to go with the pet rock route. So and so in my so Hot Wheels was
You
always
mean Neopet.
I've always I always grew up with Hot Wheels, always loved them, cool cars, all that kind of stuff. My kid, she's my little daughter, she loves cars and My Little Pony, but I went with Hot Wheels. And in my division, I just found out, like everybody in my division, and I'm kind of talking some smack right now with Dominate. You know him?
Yeah.
We had him on.
And I have a little banter going on in the Twitters right now. Just
beautiful.
For fun.
He's good, dude.
He's good, but the guy that I'm most worried about is actually Mark Leopold. You know him?
Mm-hmm.
He's another Roto Underworld guy.
That's right.
He was in the semis last year, and he was in the quarters the year before. So he's he can play. So some formidable guys in my group. Not as many famous guys as normal. Like a couple years ago, I was in the same division as Sigmund Bloom and Matt Kelly and Nate List in one.
Oh,
wow.
God.
Group of death.
8. Yeah. And actually, that was the one that I actually got out, made the playoffs, and they didn't.
Not a guy. Not a guy.
And then last year, which was, I don't really want to talk about it, was terrible because I had the 101 and I went with Barkley, and it just went terrible from there. I was in Graham Barfield.
Oh, so, killer.
Who happened to finish second last in the division, just ahead of me.
Right on, Mark.
All right, I'll jump in here. So I was last year was Mega Man. This will be my 4th Scott Fishbowl. First year, I don't even remember what the first year was. I don't remember. But last year was Mega Man
1.
That was the first.
Yeah.
Well,
I guess it was. Yeah, I guess it was 7. Right, it was the first one I played in. So Mega Man for Scott Fishbowl 9, I finished tied for first. I guess 10-2. I had, who did I have in my? Andrew Fleischer from 4 from 4, Anthony Savino, Jake Seeley. It's funny, Jake Seeley is in my division again this year. It's 2 years in my division. And
that guy is accurate.
And then last year I had Jeff Lambert. This year I have his buddy Searfoss in my division with Will. See, I'm going up against the big shark here. It's Harris time. And Curtis Patrick was in my division last year. And that's pretty. I don't. John Williams. I don't know.
Killer.
Not sure who that is. But yeah, you know what? It was my best season. I've progressively gotten better every year. So this year I'm hoping to kind of go even farther. We'll see how it goes. But it's all about fun, man. Like you said, it brings the community like nothing else. The charity aspect is awesome. I do a ton of the eliminators with John Bosch. He organizes those, so that's another way that you can give back to Fantasy Cares. And draft, like it doesn't hurt to draft, right? I do a ton of best balls, but usually this time of year I slow those down and I just hit the eliminators hard, and we start getting ready for the fishbowl, and there's so many different things going on, but there's different ways. Even us Canadians have a few things going on, a bunch of leagues starting up, some best balls. Will's got a bunch of stuff he started up, and then there's even some charity stuff that I saw going around. So there's a lot going on in fantasy right now. Just it's probably mostly the dynasty community, but I think just overall in fantasy, and people are excited and hoping that sports do come back soon. And this is a way to kind of get into it, while the players are not on the field yet.
Hey, Will, I want to jump in there because I like what JD said about the stuff that you're working on. So why don't you take a minute and talk about the CNBBCL, and just kind of let everybody know what that's all about, because that's really in the spirit of what the Scott Fishbowl is all about. And I think it's remarkable work that you've done in pulling that together. So I want you to take a second and talk about that, because it's awesome, my man.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been super exciting and really only possible because of the support of everybody in this room right now. So thanks to you guys. But the Canadian National Best Ball Champions League is really the first of its kind in Canada. And what my goal was to bring together the best fantasy players in Canada. And I think that we're definitely on our way to getting them there. And it really just started off as I thought maybe, hey, we'll be able to get 12 teams together. And then that kind of really filled up fast. And we got 16, so one full conference. And thanks to some of the great minds in here, we came up with a pretty killer Canadian theme in the Tragically Trailer Park. So two kind of iconic institutions in Canada, the Tragically Hip and the Trailer Park Boys. And everybody got really fired up and behind that. And we are 100% of all the money that's raised it's a little bit different from your kind of typical pot take home. So each team is playing for a charity of their choice. So the winner's pot will go towards that charity, and then the rest of the entry fees will go to KMH, which is really exciting, and it's fun to give back to the community. And it started off with these 16 teams, but now it's growing to 32. So our first conference was the Gord Downey Conference. Second conference is the Jim Leahy Conference, and it's just so exciting to see how fired up everybody gets and so excited. And it's been amazing to see the interest and people just constantly reaching me. And what started off as a little bit of COVID boredom has turned into something pretty big, and talking to a few corporate sponsors to get behind this and really support what we are doing. And I think that we've really established a name for ourselves out there, and I think that it will continue to grow. And I hope that it's one of us that's crowned the first champ. But at the end of the day, like JD was saying, it's all about doing it for a good cause and having some laughs along the way. And every single day, I definitely get a kick out of it. Throwing some tweets out there and quoting some tragic clip is never a bad thing. So yeah, Canadian National Best Ball Champions League. You can follow the hashtag. I'm pretty active on there. If you want to get involved, please just send me a DM or however you want to get a hold of me, and we'll make sure that you get involved in some capacity, whether that's, a sponsorship or you want to be a player. More than happy to get you involved, but just want to thank everybody for being, so involved with it. And, I got to give a shout out to my brother, Minshew Brofist there, and all the work that he's done creatively too, to really give this thing some legs. So thank you. Thanks.
My pleasure. I've had a lot of fun designing for all you guys. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And a big shout out to Scott Fish too. Like, I think this is what's so great about this whole concept is that it's completely trickled down, and this is the kind of stuff people want to gravitate to. Like, you hear a lot about Twitter. This is what we want to identify with, the good, and the example he's setting, it just can't be understated. That's what I respect the most about him. It's one thing to make it to the top like a Stephen A. Smith. It's an entirely different thing, and frankly far more rare these days for somebody to make it to the top with overwhelming good deeds and a non-agenda driven positive message. And that's exactly what Scott Fish he's accomplished that.
Yeah, and Ty, it's so good, that you put it that way so eloquently. It's it's nice to see people in the industry that don't have an agenda. Right? Like, there's no agenda here.
Like you, Will, who are exactly the same. It instills that assertiveness to go out and do similar good deeds. And that's the trickle down effect. That's how it's so hard to quantify how incredible what he's doing really is and how widespread it is. It's really incredible.
Yeah. I always like meeting people who are unlike me because I always have an agenda. So
the human fund. So you're given to the human fund, Mark.
Yep. Perfect.
Hey, Jimmy, you just got seated recently, right? Where what toy division are you playing in?
Oh yeah. So I let my daughters pick the division and the draft spot.
Oh, that's what I was.
And they went with their favorite toy, which is the Rubik's Cube. I quickly found out that I don't know what I'm doing with them. I still have one from 1984 unsolved, and at least two guys in our division just posted videos of these guys solving them in like a minute. So I had to put my video up there of some smack talking with them, me trying to solve a Rubik's Cube, which it's be honest, I don't know what I'm doing, so I just kind of chucked that and talked some smack for a bit on them.
Just, those stickers off, Jim? You can just switch the stickers around.
No, I got her a good one. You can't cheat them. It's yeah. So my oldest daughter picked the Rubik's Cube division, and my youngest daughter picked the 9 spot. And I like the 9 spot. I really do. I got a strategy developed. Maybe we'll get into that later. Probably not a lot. But
well, me and Travis. Sorry, Jimbo. Me and Travis don't have a draft position. Does everybody else have their draft position set?
Yeah. I'm 8. I'm ready for Jimmy.
Run them down, then, boys. Whoever's got a draft position, I want to know where you guys are.
All right, we can jump into that. I picked the turn. I'm at the 12 spot.
Does that mean you get first waiver priority in Scott Fish Bowl?
I know that you asked me this, and I said yes, but I don't know.
It goes by who puts in the bid first, if I remember correctly.
Oh, okay. So it is Fab. It is.
Yeah.
Fab.
So I would as soon as you can, if there's that big hot piece that people are after, you want to get on there quick to get it.
Is it a rolling waiver, or do they reset weekly?
I think it's Fab dollars, right?
It's Fab.
Yeah, it's blind bidding.
Oh, yeah, perfect.
Yeah, I thought it might be old school because of the sheer volume of teams.
Tell you a little trick. A lot of people kind of give up on waivers, or they forget about them pretty quickly. I found in the skip, I found it was pretty easy to get the guys I wanted. So that's a little tip. It might be different. I don't know, but last year was pretty big, and I found it was the same.
Dropping $57 on Trent Taylor.
Pettis is going to be the hot.
Man, imagine he comes back,
baby.
My poor
throws everybody under the bus.
God.
It's a good thing Master J made me this nice artwork. I had to put away all my Debo artwork for a while. Shelf.
Can I hop in there really quick? What's driving me nuts is that people are either freaking out or they're saying he's going to be back for week 1. And probably, it's probably somewhere in the middle. But if Deebo Samuel was to miss time, everybody in the world, they will run the ball more. That is what will change. It won't be Brendan Ayuk season. It won't be this. It won't be that. The San Francisco 49ers will do what they did weeks 1 to 7, which was extremely successful, and they'll run the ball like crazy.
They also have a really good tight end, I hear, in San Francisco.
He sets edges like a rule on a draft table.
Yes, Ross Dwelly's pretty good. Same page, Mark. Same page, brother.
Where's Garrett Selicat? Another guy too. I can't remember his name, but they drafted somebody in the 7th round or something as well.
That's right. I can't remember either because the tight ends in the draft were awful.
Yeah, another thing with Fab, just to add, usually quarterbacks went down last year like crazy. And a lot of people will blow all their Fab. So those two guys just spent all $100. I think it was what we got on. Yeah, it is 100, right? We'll blow it all on one guy. So they get eliminated pretty quickly. And I was more of the kind of chipper. I would chip and kind of weasel my way for $5 here, $5 there. And that's how I kind of managed, especially my first year when I didn't have a very good team, and last year I just didn't have a very good team.
So for the guys who have been in it already, do you guys treat it like 2 different seasons? Getting to the playoffs, is that your first priority and only priority entering the draft, or are you mindful of the fact that you also have to win this separate tournament come playoff time, so you want to save some Fab? How do you approach that?
It's actually very similar if you play on the FFPC, just because shallow. There's 22 deep, right? It's very similar to the FFPC. Guys are not putting 5th or 6th, 7th round rookies on their rosters. You've got guys that you think are going to be in your lineup every week, and then you go to the waiver wire. But because it's very similar to FFPC. Like there's redraft big tournaments. There's no trades. You're only dealing with the waiver wire twice a week on Wednesday and Fridays, and you have shallow rosters. So managing it is very similar. The tight end premium is very similar. It's like a super flex version of it, basically. So if you play on the FFPC, I feel like you have an edge. And it took me the first year to figure that out. The first year I got my first tip of the night is well, there's two of them. So one is participate as much as you can. There's going to be DMs on your draft spot, one on your division.
Blowing up.
And you meet a bunch of people. Everybody's super excited, once the draft starts. But my advice is this to people who are for the first time: don't get too caught up in what people are talking about strategy wise and who they picked, and because you find out everybody's picking the same guy in the same spot, and you're going in with a plan. You're doing this for a reason because you're good at fantasy, right? So just stick to what you're doing, participate in everything. But I'm just saying, like, it's easy to get caught up, and I find you got to differentiate, man. There's like an MTT in poker, like it's a multiplayer tournament. You need to differentiate, just like those FFPC $500,000 tournaments. Like, to answer your question, Ty, you want to make it to the playoffs, and then obviously you got to have a plan for that. But tournament this big, for me, I just want to get there, and then I'll figure it out.
Hey, JD, why don't you give us a goat for that one? There it is. There it is.
JD, I love that analogy too to the FFPC. I think that's a great insight, and I think it's one more division share, as JD was saying. I'm also in the Transformers division, which is super exciting. Like JD and I was going to bring him coffee this morning. Social distance safe, all that good stuff.
Oh my God, I totally forgot about that. Yeah. any other day you would have been here. Yeah, it was here.
Totally. But I'm super excited. And one of the reasons you can get excited about this again is because of the toys, and it brings back the nostalgia, but also just some of the crazy good design work that people put up here. And gotta give a shout out again to my boy Mark Master J. He did both Goat and I's headers. I don't know if we can throw them up there, or throw one of them up there.
There's Goat.
Look at that, man. He did it like in no time. Like, that's really, one thing I love about, we talked about in the industry, people are willing to lend a hand and help each other and all that. But if you like the creative side of, Gabe does our intro music and our, outro and all that. And guys like this doing this kind of art, it's unbelievable, the talent that's in this industry. And people are not, like you said, there's no ulterior motive. Master J is not sending me a bill for like, $500 here. Well, he might be, but I've offered. But no, I mean, look, you want to reach out to these people and support them for what they do. But my point is that there's a lot of talent in this industry. Take advantage, not in a like a negative way. Take advantage of what's available in a positive way. So right now, if you're in the fishbowl and you're listening to this, you probably are. So make sure you reach out to Master J, get yourself a profile pic, a background for the Scott Fishbowl. Again, it's just all about being, participating and enjoying it and having fun with it.
Absolutely. And
hey, Willie, I'll put yours up now, my man.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's only fitting that, Optimus Prime goes to GOAT, and then we've got Mapletron as my avatar here. So we're going to be battling it out in the Scott Fishbowl division, and super excited. And I really, really hope that a Canadian takes that one home, JD. And Mark, again, awesome work on that. And I think that the people would love for us to jump into, hey, what does the roster construction look like, and what is the scoring format all about? I mean, we've kind of unearthed some interesting things. There's a lot of kind of mystique around this tournament and exactly how the scoring is, and it's so funny. We were talking about it earlier. Just all the Twitter groups are going on, and all the scuttlebutt in terms of what scoring is and what the roster construction is. I just wanted to confirm everything with Scott Fish before we kick this off, and he confirmed everything for me. So what we're going to talk about tonight is 100% what the rules are, what the scoring format is. So let's start with the roster construction. So it's 22 roster spots, and you get 11 starters. You get 1 QB, 1 super flex, 2 RB, 3 wideouts, 1 tight end, and 3 flex. So interesting roster construction. I guess to JD's point, it's probably the closest to FFPC, but with that super flex option. Guys, is there anything that jumped out to you in terms of this roster construction, or anything that gets you kind of excited, or any questions that you kind of had to work through as you saw how these rosters are going to get built?
like the first thing that really jumped out to me being the super flex is like being aware of the bye weeks with no trading, right? Like I've seen I'm actually in a few leagues where guys think they're even set with 3 quarterbacks. I take a look and they're all on like week 11 buys. I think like Daniel Jones, Kirk Cousins is one of them, or Kirk Cousins and Ryan Tannehill, I think share the same bye week. Yeah, just like with no trading, it really, I think you really got to stay on top of the bye weeks.
It's very similar. I talked about FFPC. It's very similar to an FFPC best ball. Like the way you build your roster. Yeah, you kind of have that back door with regards to the waivers, and you can pick up guys. But at the end of the day, if you build it similar to how you would in a shallower best ball, they've got those 20-man slims in the FFPC. It's tight end premium. It'd be similar to something like that, but super flex. So if you have an idea of how you're building your rosters there, you can apply it here and be successful. That's what I did last year, and it worked really well. When I looked at my roster, I was heavy on quarterback and running backs early. So I had guys like Mixon, Kamara, and Drake, who I had in the first 4 or 5 rounds. I grabbed Deshaun Watson early, and then a guy like Cousins, because of the scoring and the advantage for those more accurate quarterbacks. He was a guy I got pretty late, but he finished high enough. I think he finished as a QB 11 or 12 in this scoring. So, and then my tight ends, nothing special. Vance McDonald didn't do anything. I literally had one guy, and it's the same guy I've been grabbing for the 3 years prior, and that's Austin Hooper.
Ooh.
So, because the other guys I had were Ryan Griffin and Vance McDonald. So if you can hit on one, like for me, I'm either grabbing, and this was my strategy last year across the board. If I can get one of those top guys early at a good value or in a good spot, I'll grab them, the top 3 or 4 guys. But otherwise, there's so many guys down there, like the Jarwins, the Jonnu, the Ian Thomases, the Irv Smiths, like all those guys at the end. You get a couple of those guys, and then throw in like a Sternberger on top, and you hit on even one of them, you're good.
JD, I can't take the Griffin slander, man. He was a top 15 tight end last year, brother.
That's just I like Herndon for this year.
Me too.
Are you guys talking about Ryan Griffin?
Yeah.
You know it.
I love that.
Is there anything, Mark, that jumps out to you? You've got a couple of these under your belt. Anything major in terms of roster construction here that jumps out to you, or any kind of insights that you can provide to some of us fishbowl virgins?
Yeah, well, actually, I can share failure, which is no, it's true.
What else can you learn from?
I'll tell you what happened last year. Last year, I was the 101. And I was toying between Barkley, Elliott, and CMC, and I in the end I went Barkley, which it went and didn't go well. But I also, again, guys who were picking at the turn, I also went quarterback. Yeah. Story of my life. And I went quarterback early. So again, being at the turn, and I've had this discussion with Will already. Sometimes you really control the game, the drafting process by being at the turn, and sometimes you don't. And it backfired for me actually. When I went to Barkley, and then it came back to me, and for the second and third, I decided to go quarterback, hoping that it would propel this quarterback run, and it didn't. And so be prepared if you're at the end to assume that you double up on a position that it's automatically going to spiral or have a domino effect. It might not, and if it doesn't, it's a little devastating. And of course, I picked Deshaun Watson and Aaron Rodgers, and again, Aaron Rodgers had a really off year, and so my first 3 players, I'm sitting there with, probably the best at the time, but you have to be prepared for assuming that a lot of people base a lot of things on last year. And this is, I think, something that I've learned is you want to try to predict what's going to happen this year, not fully rely on last year. And so,
which is probably why you didn't go CMC, right? Last year?
I didn't go CMC. Yeah, and actually, to be honest with you, he wasn't even in my conversation. It was really between Barkley and Elliott. And of course, that ended up being the wrong decision. But this is why I shy away from somebody like Lamar Jackson. It's just one of those things. And the year that I did well, my quarterback I drafted later. So I'm still a big believer in, going to my third year. So I've got the year of a pretty good team, a year of a bad team. I would, if I can, wait on quarterback, but try to draft more than I need. So if I can because again, quarterbacks is such a volatile position. A guy like, the tops from last year might not be as good as they were last year. They might get hurt, etc. So I like to just pick up say 4 starting quarterbacks if possible, but not until say the 7th round, and I can start picking up guys if it's possible. I'm in the mock right now, and it was possible. So again, it's only a mock. You can't judge everything by that, but it's possible. So I would not draft quarterback early if I can help it. And because the year that I did well, I ended up with Phillip Rivers and I can't even remember off the top of my head.
You're cutting out there pretty bad, Mark. I'm gonna hop in. Can I offer a point of view that I'm approaching this as somebody who's never played in Scott Fishbowl? I'd love to pick the brains of Mark and Mr. Goat. And then Travis, you can relate because we do not have our draft position yet. So I'm wondering for the guys who have played already, because I'm thinking draft position, it comes into play significantly, and that's because these drafts have very little data to go off with the scoring settings, and a super flex aspect always comes down to each individual draft, like the quarterback runs. They can come and go at any time in a super flex draft. Sometimes it'll start in round 2. In other super flex leagues, that quarterback run might not start till round 4 or 5. So I say draft position because if you pick in the middle, maybe you let the draft come to you more, allowing you to select quarterbacks, running backs, tight ends from the back of your tiers or whatever. But you can also start the run sometimes. Otherwise, I'm likely to come in and go in with a much more contrived plan. Like I'm going to be Ziggy Marley while everyone else is zagging. Is that the way to approach it, do you think, Mr. Goat? Or what do you think? Do you think draft position is going to play a big part? Or am I overthinking it?
I was going to ask you guys if you know how to pull up the who won last year, to see the roster, because I've tried every year and I can never find it on the site because I'd love to see it. I mean, I know that I did well in my division last year, but I think I went 2 or 3 rounds into the playoffs and then I got knocked out in the semis or something like that. But I never actually saw the team that made it all the way. I will say this.
I've got it, guys. I can send it to you.
No way.
That's Gary's, right? Gary won it last year?
Gary sent it to me. I'll send it to everybody.
Like Gary IDP Gary?
Gary Haddo. Gary Haddo.
So, yeah, I mean, there are people that go contrarian. They'll go receiver. Like there's a guy last year here that went, Hopkins, Kittle, Cooper, and then Tyreek Hill, and then Lamar Jackson. But he didn't hit his running back till the 6th round. I have no idea how he did. I think there's a million different ways you can draft. I do feel, though, if you do miss out on those, let's say you do go total contrarian and you're hitting receivers early and then you go to tight end and your quarterbacks, I think that with the way this year is, I feel like you're behind when you're playing against other rosters on a weekly basis, just because you need one of those top 12 to 15, I don't know, the 3rd, 4th round. You want a couple. I feel like you want a couple. If I can start 2 running backs, and I don't like doing this. So having said this, talking both sides of my mouth, you want to go in fluid, right? You want to take what falls to you and all that kind of stuff. But the ideal draft, I feel like is getting a couple running backs in the first 3, maybe 3 in the first 5, your 2 quarterbacks. The receivers in this, the only thing they have here is you have to start 3. That's the only reason they have an importance. So there's no other advantage if you look at the scoring for the receptions and so on.
No,
so
not in your flex spot. There is zero advantage in the format.
So you can go late and often at receiver, and have depth there and just play matchups, and then just be maybe a little leaner at running back, but have guys that you can put in on a weekly basis.
Yeah, I like that a lot because like the wide receiver thing has got me thinking quite a bit about my strategies, and the fact that we have to do 3 flex along with that super flex spot. I think we're going to get into the scoring a little bit here, but as far as like roster build, I mean, I think tight end heavy might be a pretty good strategy as well if you can fill up those flex spots. It's tricky because you leave your other positions pretty thin, and if you have to switch in or if you get any injuries, you're definitely a little bit light in at wide receiver or running back or whatnot. But I think there's some merit to taking a second or a third quality tight end, maybe not early, but maybe within the first like 10, 12 rounds, if you can get 2 or 3 and a couple of those guys who can be solid flexes every week. I think the thing I love is that there's just so many different roster build potentials, right? There's so many different ways you can go with the quarterback scoring and with the tight end scoring. And of course, the half point PPR brings a different wrinkle in there as well. Because I know Ty and myself, we usually base our analysis off the PPR format. So moving back to half PPR is definitely a different facet. So I just love the fact that it causes your brain to work in a bunch of different ways as far as how you're going to build this roster, because you only get one shot a year at the fishbowl, right? So you want to do it right. So I know guys like us who are like diehard into it, we're going to be racking our brains and hoping that draft falls. But I think the biggest thing that JD said there is to just be fluid. You can't, you can talk about maybe a couple different strategies that you want to go in, but you always have to expect the worst because you really never know what could happen. Kind of like what Mark said, when, you think that at the turn, you taking 2 quarterbacks is guaranteed going to start a run that makes other players fall to you, isn't always going to happen. So the unpredictability and all the different options is what I'm super excited about as far as roster construction.
Yeah, great points, guys. I mean, we can mock 100 times, but when it comes down to it and everybody's on the clock, it's a completely different animal. Trav, I pulled up Gary's roster. If you just want to throw it on the overlay, we can take a peek at it all together. And, there's some interesting things that pop to me. I mean, it looks like, and again, this also doesn't factor in, this isn't the team he drafted necessarily, right? I don't know how you would get that, but this is his final roster. One thing that pops to me is that look at the breakout tight end, right? Hitting on Waller, which I definitely did in a bunch of leagues last year, was a big difference maker when you had that locked in tight end. One, at the back, he was going 10th, 11th, 12th round, depending on when he drafted him. So really interesting. I also think too, to a lot of the points that were made here, like look at these QBs. They're all
he won that
QBs.
league. He won that league with Ryan Tannehill. If you look at his quarterbacks, they were actually quarterbacks who we devalue in the scoring format. Josh Allen might be the quarterback in SFB 10 that I'm devaluing the most, to be honest. But if you look at Ryan Tannehill, he's a guy who scored very well in this. And one thing that's going to go under the radar in this scoring setting is that it's 6-point passing touchdown format. So that actually pumps up somebody like Ryan Tannehill, who had spectacular touchdown rate efficiency. Obviously, last year people talk about Lamar Jackson and the regression that's imminent with his touchdown rate, but Ryan Tannehill should be in that identical conversation because his was astronomical.
Yeah, the other thing that I have to point out, and I wish that Mark was here so I could rub it in on him, is he did have CMC. And
hashtag CMC no matter what.
Yeah, exactly. He had 2 powerhouses.
Aaron Jones, too, right?
Yeah, Aaron Jones and CMC.
Yeah.
And then he also locked himself up with Laddie Murray with the Saints with a lot of, it didn't really work out the best, but like he's locked to a lot of touchdowns. Yeah, right?
And he had MT too. Wow.
And he actually hit Bo Scarborough, had a few good fantasy weeks there.
And Jacob Hollister at the end of the year had a good couple games as well.
So
people were hating Mike Evans too.
So
he's got my boy Darius Slayton.
2 wide receiver ones on that team. 2 wide receiver ones on that team.
Not that
I'm saying I really am devaluing pass catchers. And even the tight end position, Trav, that you were mentioning, I think the way to go is the same as you always do. Like in the FFPC, if you don't get an elite tight end, don't try and compensate with depth. Yeah, because that's usually a mistake.
Yeah. So I think we talked about, right, is that he had that solid foundation of running backs, pretty much all late round QBs, like guaranteed that Tannehill was on waivers, right? And then breakout tight end, and then wide receivers. He did have a pretty good core there, right? That they could lean on. So I think that's kind of perfect timing to actually look at what scoring looks like, and then kind of let's break that down a bit if everybody's ready for that.
Yeah, tell us how Ryan Tannehill could be the quarterback 8 in that scoring setting.
Yeah, absolutely.
He would be the 8, right?
Is Mark coming back? So I think a couple things to really point out. We look at those very volatile quarterbacks that really helped Gary out last year in the Jameis Winstons and Josh Allens, that they make a lot of risky plays, and they do throw quite a few picks. Well, in Scott Fishbowl 10, there's actually a focus on kind of like, I call it the QBR scoring, where you get bonus points for completions, and you're a 0.5 for every completion. And sorry, minus, is it 0.5?
Oh, you got it. Yeah, 0.5 for
it's 0.5 a completion.
Minus 1 for a incompletion. So
an incompletion, which is really interesting. And then the next one that's really interesting is that for sacks.
Yeah, here, Willie, you want me to go through it just because I have it on the big screen here?
Absolutely, if you can, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So passing touchdowns, 6 points. Passing yards, 0.04 for each yard. That's standard. Completions are a half point, and incompletions are a -1 point. Interceptions thrown are -4. Interceptions thrown for a pick 6 are -2. A sack is -1. And 2-pointers are 2. So that's the quarterback scoring. And I can pull it up on the screen here as well.
Study your offensive line.
Yeah, it's all about those teams with the good O-line, right? And high efficiency passing. And I also start to think about, those lower volume passing attacks that are, more effective, more efficient. A guy like Russell Wilson, who is good for fantasy purposes anyways, does he become that much more valuable in this format? And then you've got, the later round guys that the Ryan Tannehill hate is real out there, and I just don't get it. I mean, his team stayed largely intact, and he put up QB5 Tanner Skrills.
Tanny Skrills, baby.
He did put up weeks of top 5 quarterback numbers, and nothing has changed there. We've all seen the body shots of AJ Brown that surfaced last week. I think that he's in the best shape of his life, like everybody is. But the weapons are there for Tannehill, and I think that AJB takes another step forward, and Jonnu takes another step forward as well. And hey, maybe it's the season of Corey Davis. So guys like I'm super interested in, and I don't get the slide. So I'm looking at, that kind of scoring, and definitely those efficient passers with the good O-lines. I think that's another one too, right? Is that let's look at the teams with the good O-lines, because what really surprised me actually was just how good Watson still was when you overlaid the 2020 Scott Fishbowl scoring on the 2019 stats. Man, oh man, that guy is just a phenomenal talent. But I know that the O-line has taken strides forward, but man, he gets sacked a lot, but he still put up the points. So you kind of change the lens on quarterbacks, but I think that you look at, hey, is this a good quarterback? Do they have a good O-line? Okay, this is probably somebody that I want on my team.
Well, I'm not going to like having you in my division, because see the first name literally on my little list here that I wrote says Tannehill right there. Yeah, man. Agree. He's
on third round.
He's on my list too.
Love the handwritten notes, boys.
I mean, you look at this guy's stats from last year. True passer rating, he was QB1. True completion percentage, he was a QB6. Play action completion percentage, he was the QB1. Red zone,
and that ain't going anywhere.
QB6. Clean pocket completion percentage, he was the QB4. Pressured completion percentage, he was QB6. So he's top 6 in everything. The difference is, and Chris Sims said it on his podcast, he's doing like a quarterback countdown, and he ranked Tannehill ahead of Murray at 11. And he was comparing Tannehill's situation in Miami to, I'm a big Peyton Manning guy. Peyton Manning made me love football like as much as I do, because I followed him from day one to now, and I'm a huge Colts fan because of it, and I'm a huge football fan because of it. But he when he was in Denver, it wasn't the same Peyton Manning, right? It was like short game, very controlled, high precision game, efficient offense.
Those deep shots, those scheme deep shots you're talking about.
but look at what and then look at what Tannehill did in Miami, right? He wasn't really being used the same way he is now, and he didn't have the same defense, the same weapons that Manning had. So now he's got some of those weapons. You mentioned AJB. You mentioned, now Jonnu's coming up. Henry's there as one of the best running backs in the league. They've got the offensive line. Their defense is legit. So, Tannehill for me is a guy that people are kind of sleeping on, thinking, oh, he's gonna come back and he's not gonna be as good this year. But I agree with you guys, and I think that this is one of those tournaments where if you can get a guy like that at a value, you get an advantage. So again, totally. Wish I didn't have Will in my division on that turn.
If you were to look at those two guys in the Scott Fish Bowl 10 scoring settings, he would have outscored Kyler Murray by 4 points per game. That is an entirely different tier of quarterback. That's an advantage. I think the craziest thing is we are devaluing the attributes we chase in a fantasy quarterback. It's really weird, like the mobility and rushing upside. We have to detach from that obsession because the scoring in Scott Fish Bowl comes with like severe penalties, like we were saying, for turnovers. It kind of what I think is we want to avoid quarterbacks who are going to take 40 sacks this year, and for instance, Arizona was close to allowing 40 sacks last year, but Kyler Murray is one of those quarterbacks who was deemed to be responsible for over 20 sacks, by himself last year. And, that 6 point per passing touchdown, that does factor into guys like Josh Allen, big time, guys like Kyler Murray, so it's wild that some of our targets in other fantasy leagues, they're fighting a few battles in this format. And the big emphasis for me, obviously, will be placed on accuracy. And yeah, like you said, JD, efficiency. And I love some of those stats you pulled, like the play action from a clean pocket. Those are the quarterbacks who are good. And you can say, oh, okay, it was just Adam Gase is that horrible of a coach to be attached to. You know what I mean? And outside of that, he's a good quarterback. So I love the Tannehill call. I think he does kind of occupy that tier of quarterbacks. Like, I hate to even say this out of my mouth, but Derek Carr, guys like that, you have to push them up, whether we like them or not.
So here's a question, since we're talking about efficient quarterbacks. How early does Drew Brees go?
Late first. I think he's
wasn't he 109
in this?
So just real quick, boys, Drew Brees was the quarterback 21 in regular formats in 2019, and he bumps up to the quarterback 6 in SFBX. So I think kind of like Ty said, like it devalues a lot of those things that we chase in quarterbacks. Another thing that it maybe not quite as much as the sacks, but it devalues the volume a little bit as well, because higher volume probably means more incompletions, right? And that's minus 1 point for every incompletion. So it's not a sack or an interception, but and I'm not going to not draft these guys who are high volume passers, but it just makes you think and gives you a little bit of pause on taking those guys super early, because you can get like a Drew Brees is probably going to go a little bit higher when the drafts come about. But I think those guys like Ty said, Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins, he was the quarterback 9 in SFBX.
Well, if I could just hop in, I think
are you sure Brees was 6?
Just said,
I thought he was 2.
I thought he was 2.
I thought Matty Stafford was 6.
Gotcha.
Oh, points per game is 2. Yeah.
If I could just hop in, I think Drew Brees encapsulates everything all of us are talking about. He has the offensive line, he has the scheme on offense, he has the coaching, he has it all. Drew Brees is accurate as anybody in the whole world.
So Ty, where are you taking him?
I'll take Drew Brees in the first round. Yeah. I'm really loading up on quarterbacks and running backs unless I can get an elite tight end. I'll deviate, but I'm in best balls. I've gone running back this year all the time. There's so much volatility with the wide receiver position as it is, with the turnover inside the top 12, top 24. You just need to make sure you're not going too far before you add a Kenny Golladay, a DJ Moore. These guys need to be added in round 3, 4, 5. You just got to hammer them.
No, I actually I had a question for JD there where he said he kind of felt like you're playing behind the 8 ball if you're not grabbing your running back early, but I wanted to ask him, like, from the 9 spot, I'm actually kind of considering possibly doing a Drew Brees and if he falls, Travis Kelce 1-2 with that scoring format. And I just want to know his thoughts on, like, does he think it's going to be that big of a disadvantage if you can hit a guy like David Montgomery who's going to hit like 250, 225 touches on the year, right? Like,
no, not at all. I think it's deep enough that you like Montgomery's not gonna, it's not necessarily on talent, but just on volume. That guy's he's a guy you can start every week, right? So if you could go either way. You just talk about Kenny G. I was on Dynasty Warzone, and Kenny G we talked about is like the perfect guy that if you start heavy running back, you grab him in the 4th, and you've got yourself your wide receiver 1, right? So similar here, man. Whether you go running back early, wide receiver early, you can always anchor it by grabbing one of those guys in the 3rd or 4th. It just depends on how you want to build your roster. I know me specifically, with all the drafting I've done this offseason, I've kind of, and that's why I keep trying to tell people, like, best balls, there's a reason people do best balls, and the people who do best balls are the best at building rosters. I'll put that up against anything, man. That's a fact. I see it. I see it with people that I play against. You just learn how to build a roster, and you learn how to build it based on the ADP, right? It's not just based on in your head. Like,
how the draft's going to fall.
Yeah, it's realistic. It's based on things that you can actually do, that you can quantify, and value that you find in drafts. So, you can build your rosters different ways. And I don't mind that, Jim, if you start with a quarterback and a tight end. I was going to say, even when Trav talked about, like, I was huge on the ends. I always wanted the ends. Before last year, I would say I always wanted to be either in the 12 spot, the 1 spot. I love grabbing 2 guys at once and trying to control the draft. Now I'm more like, I want to be more in the middle, because I feel like I'm never going to get caught that way. Mm-hmm. And I can kind of play my way through. I got to be honest, like, I really don't care what spot I'm in at the end of the day in a draft. I feel like I can figure it out. But you guys were talking about, like, being on the turn for Will, and not that I want to help my big opponent, my Mapletron over here. But you talked about the tight ends. Like, if someone on the turn wanted to start tight end, if he wants to go like Kelsey, Kittle, or Kittle, Andrews, or something, that's a way where you just gained an advantage. You went from being the last guy to pick to you're making people nervous about tight end, because some people get really nervous when they see, something like that go early. And 2, you just you never have to touch that position again for the rest of the draft. Now you can look at other positions that are going to drops.
Yeah.
So you're grabbing value. I love that play, because you're grabbing value when everyone else is hammering tight end rounds like 7 to 11.
Exactly. I love that. You're going to scare the boots off of people.
I want to ask you a question, Jimbo, because I really want to ask this, Jimbo, before I forget, because it was such a great point you made. And Travis made the point earlier about quarterback, how we're devaluing volume a little bit, and I totally agree with that. But are we pumping volume up at the running back position because of point per first down, and because of the devaluation of anybody who catches passes whatsoever, whether it's, Tariq Cohen or whoever? Is David Montgomery kind of one of those guys you guys are really pushing up and makes for a perfect guy?
I think, well, I know I am, but like I said, I think he's getting kind of shit on a little bit. Like, he's a running back that's going to get like 200 carries, right? Like, in this offense,
like 250 probably.
Yeah, probably 250. Like I said originally 250, but like honestly, like 225, 230, 250 is pretty high, but like, he's locked in the volume, and he's a guy that I'll definitely grab. Like, that's why I'm kind of considering with the 9 spot. I think it's actually a perfect spot to maybe even grab Kelsey at the 109 and Drew Brees coming back, depending on either way. But like, those 2 guys are I think deadly with the positional value, and then I can go like you guys are saying with value later on in the rounds, and guys are kind of scrambling for tight ends. And David Montgomery's high on the list, actually. David Montgomery, but I know it's kind of risky, but Todd Gurley's another one, because I don't really see the true competition behind him. And I know
think you get a little bit. Yeah, I think you get some high variance with David Montgomery, like career arc wise. Like, David Montgomery could have that breakout. I think the high variance Todd Gurley would experience is his knee fucking blows out.
Yeah, but Todd Gurley's another guy like I'll grab, because I mean
that we're pushing up this format.
You're telling me you can't grab like Brian Hill or Kadri Olison or whoever you're gonna deem to be the RB2 behind him? It's going to be a knee swell away.
That, Jimbo. I'm telling you, you can't do that.
I can't.
I'm saying we shouldn't do.
I know what you're saying.
I'm kidding. We should be grabbing all the running backs. I'm planning to occupy all my flex spots with running backs.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm in.
You're right, Jimbo.
I'm kind of in a league and with the tight end premium that's kind of similar to Scott Fish scoring, and I got kind of lucky actually. I do have a Kittle. Actually, it's three flex positions that you can do the tight ends with one tight end that you have to start. And I have Kittle, Kelsey, Waller, Hooper, and who's the other one? Yeah, I got a lot of them, man. Like I have no idea how it ended up happening.
You're in with you and your daughter and your other daughter? Is this?
Man, hey man,
Wow.
this is and ready for this? The RB1 on the team, CMC.
Hey guys, okay, I just want to hop in really quick because I want to know your guys' thoughts on occupying your flex spot and where you're going to do it. Because I want to lay this out. Last year, if you were to take all the Scott Fishbowl 10 scoring settings, we would have had 17 quarterbacks and 17 running backs score 15 points per game throughout the season. We would have had less than 5 wide receivers and less than 5 tight ends do the same. So does that worry you guys about points per game, or do you guys think that maybe it was just a really down season at the wide receiver position?
I think it definitely was a down season at the wide receiver position. Ty, you've actually laid that out pretty good on some of our past pod episodes that wide receiver scoring is actually down. And I think the fact that it's just a half point per reception for them, it's going to be down a little bit more. So I liked what you said there, Ty, in that you're going to want to hammer, starting caliber running backs at those positions. Or like for me, honestly, with the extra half point for a first down, some of these upside tight ends, I think could be legitimate flex options, especially with the full point PPR compared to the half point for the wide receivers, as well as the half point for those low snap volume pass catching running backs is right. Like behind David Montgomery is Tariq Cohen. But I mean, he's not full PPR, so he does have a little bit less value than the format that say I usually play in. So it's going to be really interesting to fill with those running backs and kind of what types of running backs you're doing it with, or even if you're doing that, what's your stance on that with the 3 flexes there and how you plan on filling them?
Yeah, again, because you're shallower leagues, I'm kind of taking the same approach I do in the FFPC, where I'm going top heavy and slim at receiver. So because there's 3 spots, I probably want like 5 guys. 4 of them are probably wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 at worst, because those guys are going to get pushed down. That's the thing, right? It's deep. Those tiers are a lot wider this year at wide receiver position versus in the past. So you can get yourself like some, 3 or 4 wide receiver 2s or wide receiver 1 and like whatever 3 or 4 wide receiver 2s to fill the other 2 spots. Whereas the running back, it gets pretty shaky. So if you do go with that aspect, you balance it out nicely. So if you're tight and slim and top heavy at receiver, the depth that you have at running back, because of the nature of the position and being able to know on a weekly basis who's going to start, this guy got hurt, so now Boston Scott is now starting, or whoever you got, Chase Edmonds that you picked up.
Don't say that, Goat.
Don't put that on Miles Sanders. No. Yeah, I got 30% ownership, bud. That's my boy, Goat. Ownership, that's my boy.
I'm not.
Hey guys,
on anyone, man. How'd you get Eckler last year and win your league? I had Eckler in like most of my leagues last year because he was one of those guys you got late. Added depth at your running back position. You knew when he was going to start, and when he went off, you had a starter every week, where it's harder to get that at receiver. So that's kind of how I like to build my roster, and I don't see it any different here in this tournament.
Yeah, I think that flexing out wide receivers just because it's such a volatile position is, it's risking a lot, right? Where as in a running back, you fill up your 2 running back spots, and if you have 2 other starters that are in the flex spot, you can at least bank on a floor play, right? Given their roles and their specific offenses. And, we already talked a little bit about that wide receiver depth, but we're coming off of probably, one of the most productive rookie wide receiver seasons that we've seen. And I think it's like the last 25 years or something like that, right? You couple that with an elite wide receiver class coming in. What does that do to the value of incumbent wide receivers? It should just push it back, right? And that's why it really resonated from what you guys were saying earlier about hammering those tight ends early. That can cause some real panic when Kittle and Kelsey go off the board that early. Everybody starts to think, okay, well, those guys are off the board. I don't have that reliable tight end, because outside of those 2, I don't, tell me who's a reliable tight end that you can bank on X amount of points. Let's say call it 15 points in the tight end premium scoring. Who else is there? There's literally nobody. So, causing that tight end run to go earlier can really push that wide receiver value back. Like when you can grab, the Deontay Johnsons, the Slaytons, the Jones, Christian Kirks of the world later on. I mean, give me that. Yeah, they're a bit more volatile, but hey, I'm going to have that locked in tight end and running back position early that I can bank on every single week and know that they're reliable starters. And I can hit on those big weeks of, some of those more volatile guys, right? Like the Slaytons and the Kirks that can go off for a massive week.
And Jim was talking about earlier, like trying to take 2 quarterbacks there on that turn and it not having an effect. That first year where I did not do as well, I was kind of following the herd. That's kind of what I tried to do. I tried to pick off 2. I remember it was like Mariota and Carr, something like that on the 2-3 turn, on the 2-3 turn. I think that's what it was, or something like that, where I was trying to grab 2 because I figured if I get people nervous, it'll push things down, and it just didn't happen. And I just remember the rest of that draft, I was kind of chasing it. So I think Jim hit it on the head with if you're not there with quarterback, don't chase after it, because then you're just it's the same thing with running back, right? And that's why I'm using the tight end as the pivot, right? Because then you're just you're behind everyone else. If you're just chasing what everyone else, you got to figure out a way to differentiate from what's going on.
Yeah, and depth isn't always going to give you fantasy points. Like people mistake, having a Cole Beasley and another PPR useless bum giving you 10 PPR points isn't the same as somebody who can plug in giving you 15 points.
No,
totally.
And just I want to do this before I forget. So in the Scott Fishbowl 10 scoring settings, if you look at the wide receiver 13 to 24, so exactly the wide receiver 2 bracket from last year under these scoring settings from this year, they are within 1 point per game of each other.
Mm-hmm.
So you just need to make sure, you just need to make sure you're hammering a bunch of those guys. You know what I mean? That's how you fill your wide receiver room in a tournament like this, I think.
Totally. And that's kind of the perfect kind of segue into, we've broken down the QB kind of outliers. I'm wondering from what you guys are seeing right now, was there somebody with the settings? And again, I mean, we're drafting for 2020 and what those players are going to do that year. And sometimes if we're looking back, we're going to get burnt, but I'm still curious, was there some outliers in terms of those running backs and wide receivers that with the Scott Fishbowl 10 settings kind of jumped out to you and said, wow, this, they got a ton of first downs. It's a little bit, they're a lot more higher in the scoring settings than what I expected. I'd love to hear, Jimmy, if there was any of those players that kind of popped for you.
Well, with the running back, not so much, but talking about running backs, so I did actually want to ask a quick question there. As JD brought up, like you can win with late round guys, like he said last year. Eckler was one. 2 years before that, it was actually James Conner. I have a question, and it's how early are you drafting a guy like Alexander Madison with the potential of the Dalvin Cook holdout, and how early are you willing to grab Cook as your running back there?
I'm going to call Madison as I might get burned on this, but my gut just does not prove me wrong often. I feel like Madison is this year's trap. I think people are going to invest too much in Madison. I think he's going to be this year's Henderson.
From people forget what happened last year when Cook was out for 2 games. Like my boy was the running back to own.
Boone
just went from 6 to midnight.
Season, baby.
Exactly. Hey guys, can I bring up another with Madison, man? I just don't see it with Madison. Just look at his stats last year. How many RB1 or RB2 production games did he show you when Cooks wasn't playing? When Dalvin wasn't on the field, he doesn't catch the ball as much. Like I don't know. I think people are just kind of fitting him in and putting him in as the replacement and think he's going to be Dalvin Cook. And I think that could be a mistake this year. That's just my approach on the situation.
I think Jimbo was on the right track. Like, I think we should be compiling backup running backs like Chase Edmonds. These guys were pushing up our board significantly in the format. But I totally agree with Alexander Madison. He might have been the least efficient running back in the red zone, touchdown rate, everything you can look at. And it's not supernatural. It's because Dalvin Cook's used in the high leverage situations because he's much better. And guys, I get where everyone's coming from, but if you're worried about Dalvin Cook from a contractual standpoint, you should be worried about like a dozen other guys too. Like, Joe Mixon and all these guys.
I'm not. I just kind of curious on where you think they're going to get pushed up on the boards. Like I have Madison as a late round guy where I've had him before. Like this holdout situation came up, and I'm telling you, I'm selling him as fast as I'm going to get as soon as I get a decent offer. Like I'm unloading him.
I think for me, the big factor in what Ty's saying about the backup running backs and stacking those guys is that we can't make trades, right? So
take all the Patriots backs.
Yeah. Not only do we want to handcuff.
Hey, Ty, that didn't work last year, man. Did not work.
It did every year before it, though.
So true. So true.
It's kind of like what Jimbo was saying about Latavius Murray. Like, it's process over results. Latavius Murray's a guy I will move significantly up because we're devaluing pass catching. We're, pushing up the guys who can be that high variance player who can come in and just blow up in this format. And that guy, Latavius Murray's like the perfect guy. Because you look at who were really big payoffs in this format. It was guys like Raheem Mostert, and Raheem Mostert got like no passing work. It was all touchdowns and rushing production.
Yeah, absolutely. Brother Mo is always a good story. I guess the next thing, and Trav started to talk about it, was because there is no in-season trading, and I know Jimmy loves the in-season trading. Wanted to flip it over to the vet JD that's been through this a few times. Does that kind of alter how you're tackling this?
No, again, because we play FFPC, all those big tournaments, the football guys, the main event, all that, there's no trading in them. It's just waiver wires every week. So you kind of get, again, it's kind of like you're mixing the best ball aspect where you can't trade. So you learn to build your roster knowing that in the back of your head that you're not going to be able to move certain players to fill the holes, right? You're playing the waiver wire. The thing you have to look out for, and this is my tip to I'm in a bunch of DMs, but somebody was asking the other day about, like, they're just starting out in Dynasty on the FFPC, and even in redraft, like, I just look at the Football Guys Championship, which is similar to the Scott Fishbowl in the sense that it's a redraft, shallow leagues, big volume tournament, a lot of people in it, and
early playoffs.
Yeah, exactly. And I won my division, or I won my league 3 years in my first 3 years in the Football Guys Championships. And it was always because I just hit hard on the waiver wire, because I hit hard on OBJ as a rookie. I hit hard on Juju as a rookie. And these guys were getting dropped off of rosters just because impatient owners were dropping them, and I'd pick them up. And the last half of the season, I had a guy like OBJ in my flex, or a guy like Juju in my flex. So I would just say keep an eye on the waivers, because, like I said earlier, people give up on it pretty easy. Once they're down or have a losing record, they kind of lose interest, or I don't know what it is. But I found all 3 years that I've been able to get guys on waivers pretty easily, and but don't depend on it. Like, build this roster like a best ball, and then use the waiver as that you're going to be able to plug like 2 or 3 holes max with the waiver wire.
No, I love that. I'd love to hear, Trav, just kind of what your mindset is in terms of coming into to drafts, knowing that you can trade, and really your team is your team, other than your fab budget and waivers.
Yeah, well, I kind of alluded to it a bit earlier. Just I think it raises the importance of, for me, handcuffing my studs, especially at running back. I'm going to be hammering those handcuffs, and I might even reach a little bit depending on my draft slot, just because if I don't know what my draft slot is because I'm not placed yet. But if depending on where my draft slot is, I might have to reach a little bit for those guys. And if I'm getting like a Barkley at, say, 102, or if I get the 101 and I get CMC, I don't necessarily know who the handcuff is there, but if it defines itself, I'm hammering that guy, because if something goes down to that stud running back, it could tank your whole team. Whereas if you get the guy that's backing him up, you may at least get adequate production out of that guy. And I know that the rosters are a little bit more shallow as well, but the backup backup quarterbacks like a Tannehill from last year, if you get maybe a little bit light on the starters, you might want to grab a couple of those guys. Like I think of Derek Carr we were talking about. If I'm getting Derek Carr, I'm probably going to try and get Marcus Mariota because, that leash could be a little bit short. And I know it does hold up another roster spot, but I think it's kind of important to make sure you have contingency plans because you're not going to be able to find a whole ton on those waiver wires.
Yeah, because you think about it too, right? Like you think about Mariota. I think that he will probably get drafted, no doubt, and I doubt that he'll hit waivers.
I think he's going to get meaningful starts this year, man.
Well, I think
that's the type of guy who 100% of somebody's tab gets spent on.
Jimmy doesn't like. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying.
No, I do.
You. That's why it's probably beneficial to pick someone up like that in your draft because as soon as that hits waiver, someone that doesn't have a quarterback is going to blow their mind. And then too, just maybe a game theory thing too is if somebody has fab and they want to prevent you from being successful within the division, they could throw all their fab on it and just sits on the bench, right? So I think having that locked up, and especially on the running back side too, and on the QB side too. Hey man, you don't want to be paying out of your nose for those waiver wire pickups. But Jimmy, man, I got to hear from you because you are the master of the deal. So how are you going about it, man?
To be honest, man, like looking at these scoring settings and roster construction, it kind of favors. It feels like a championship roster is the way I kind of would build it. Like looking at the QBs, oh man, there's 4 of them that I really like, and I say 4 because it's 2 sets of 2 that have 2 bye weeks. But even then, I feel like you can get 2 of them kind of late. I'm looking at probably hammering, like I was saying to JD there, an elite quarterback like Drew Brees and an elite tight end in my first 2. Hammering my running backs through rounds 3 through 5 probably, and then picking up a shit ton of quarterbacks. So I have them is probably my biggest plan right now because I know I can't trade the quarterbacks, but even still, like I'm going to be taking a guy and I think I'm going to get him at a discount too because he's not really a starter right now, and that's famous Jameis. Also, you just kind of handcuffs him there with Drew Brees, who I'm trying to pick up. Another guy that I'll throw a dart at late is going to be is Cam. I hope he's not signed by the time we end up doing these drafts.
Jim, stop giving stop giving me all
picks. No doubt, eh?
No, I'm just gonna take a bunch. I'm gonna take 5 tight ends, guys. Just write it down.
I was gonna say Jim's
going top heavy.
Jim's top heavy. Back is like the UFC's new favorite kick, like the shin kick, because it just cripples everyone else. Mm-hmm. Like him taking 4 or 5 quarterbacks. He can't trade him, but you're crippling the rest of your league by doing that.
Absolutely.
So you just have to build really well around those guys. And
exactly.
Like I said, I'm thinking about going. I think I'm going to go top heavy, right? Like having at least one solid quarterback, a couple solid running backs, and like I said, top heavy. I'll work the waiver wire when it comes to wide receivers, especially now when JD's telling me like you can hit these fucking gems. I'm not a rookie wide receiver drafter. I'm going to be passing on the Jalen Ragers, even though I love them. The CeeDee Lambs, I'm passing on them. I'm waiting for guys to get a little frustrated by week 6, 7, and grab them later. I'll grab the veterans. I'll work the wire. I know I can't trade, but like I said, I'm looking to go top heavy. I don't care about my bye weeks. I'm not looking at bye weeks when it comes to every position but quarterback. The quarterback I'm going to be winding my bye weeks for, but other than that, I'm just going to be going top heavy and then working the waiver wire. Like running back's a pretty volatile position as it is anyway. We already know that out of the top 12, I think it's 4 are always switching in new from that weren't in there last year, right? There's whether it be injury or holdout or some stupid reason.
Or is it really just 4? I thought it'd be more.
I don't know. I think it's 6, but I don't want to sound like too anxious with that. But for sure, there's always volatility in that. tight end seems to be stable at the top. Like I said, like your top 3, top 4 guys seem to be repeatable. Definitely the top 2, which is another reason why I'm thinking maybe even double tight end. But like I said, I want top heavy starting roster. I want the set it and forget it tight ends. I want at least one starting quarterback that I can just feel comfortable having. And then my super flex, like I said, I'll take the shot. There's a guy, I don't think we said the points per game total, but he scored as number 6. I want to go back and check it out, because I don't really want to say his name, because he's a guy that I have on my radar as another quarterback that I want. Yeah, but he was number 6 in points per game in this scoring if you went a full season, and he's a guy that I guarantee people are going to forget about due to recency bias. So yeah, that's me anyway. Hey, honey.
Yeah, I love that, Jimmy. Yeah, so just to kind of recap some of these interesting scoring settings, definitely on the QB, it changes things up. So passing TDs were 6, completions worth 0.5, and incompletion -1, interception -4, pick 6 is -2, and QB sack is -2, and a 2-point conversion pass TD is worth 2 points. So definitely picking your quarterback and picking them wisely, whether that's early or late, I think is going to be pretty important here. And I think the tight end premium aspect of this too. I mean, Kelsey would have been scoring over 20 points a game when you apply the 2020 Scott Fishbowl rules to 2019. So tight end and JD has got me thinking hard at the 112 spot, just hammering Kelsey and Kittle and letting everybody else panic at tight end in the Transformers division. But I'm gonna let that marinate a little bit more.
I'm not so sure Kelsey makes it to the 12 spot, boys. Like I think Kelsey's going earlier than the 12 spot.
Which is why, like I was saying earlier, I might go Kelsey 109.
Well, you got Kelsey and Breeze. Like, I don't think you're going to get that, because I don't think Breeze is going to make it all the way to the 204. So it's interesting. If you get that, you're laughing. But
yeah, we'll see.
Those guys are going to be pushed up. Like Kelsey and Kittle, I could see both of those guys going in the first round. So it's going to be like, it's the unpredictability of the Scott Fishbowl.
I'm going to give a shout out, and I'm going to help the peeps. We do the toolbox on the GOAT district, and we shout out like a site or a tool that we use. So I'm going to shout out the FF Engineer. He's got the SFBX mock ADP. So he's got like 27 mock drafts right now, and you can check out the ADP on those. So it'll give you guys an idea on some of this stuff that we're talking about, where these specific quarterbacks are going, running backs, the tight ends. So like right now, Kittle, according to this, was going 15, almost 16, and Kelsey was going 12 at the 12.7. So literally on that turn.
So you could hit them both from the 9.
Yeah, potentially.
Interesting.
Potentially.
That actually leads into another question I was going to ask you guys. Like, so I obviously do mock drafts like the rest of you. And obviously I do some of them to better myself, but there's some where I just fuck with them and try to skew the ADP just a little bit. I was wondering if I'm the only one that does that a little bit, but
so I don't do mock. I only do best balls.
yeah, like that's why like I'll do the mock drafts where like I mean, yeah, it is a little bit to just see how your roster constructions will look, but like there's been mock drafts where I've hammered, like triple tight end, and there's been mock drafts. Well, there's been real drafts where I've hammered five quarterbacks to start the draft, and just put a crippling value on the rest of the league. But I don't know. Like I said, like I skew value sometimes, right? Like if Alexander Madison's ADP is high on mock drafts, that's probably because sometimes I grab him in round 2 just to fuck with guys. Like, I don't know. That's just me.
See, for me, I think the thing with that is if I'm doing mock drafts for the SFB, I'm only practicing strategies that I can see myself employing in the draft, right? Like going so outside of the box like that for me, and totally, Jim, like not to discount your strategy as well, because I've seen that shit work for you in drafts. For me, like I'm a very risk averse player, right? So to take those kind of risks in the SFB draft that is the biggest tournament. It's not somewhere I'm going to take those kind of crazy roster deviation risks, right? Like I'll take some risks on some high upside guys that could have zero floor, the higher variance players and whatnot. But to take those big leaps on trying to plan on fucking over the other people in the draft, essentially, I personally,
I won't do that in the FS, like in the actual draft, but in the mocks, I kind of skew some ADP every once in a while, and I don't want people knowing exactly what I'm going to be running either, right? Like
if you're in that mock and somebody else is doing that, you're probably cursing that guy out.
Not in the mock, because like I said, in the mock, it doesn't. I really don't want, I said, so okay, here's it is. Like if I'm mocking with you, Trav, and Will and JD and some guys that I'm really close with, I'll draft how I'm trying to draft. I'm trying to draft some strategy. I want to bounce some ideas off you guys. That's awesome. I'm drafting with Sleeper Bot 72 and a bunch of guys I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't want you knowing my strategies.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Mock draft with sharks is basically what Jim's saying. If you want the true experience, mock draft with people who are not
even sharks, just guys you can lean on, right? Yeah. Guys that you're bouncing DMs off of for Twitter or for trades and stuff, right? Like
there you go. I consider those guys sharks.
Here's an idea, and I love what JD was saying. Like with the best ball, because there's a little bit of money on the line. Maybe it's something that we can talk to Scott Fish about, is doing a Scott Fish Bowl best ball.
I dig that. Let's get into one of the satellite tourneys or something. I don't know if hey JD, do you know if the regular SFB entrants are allowed to play in the satellites, or?
I don't think so.
So I have no idea. It's not encouraged.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I get that too, right? Like let everybody play. But that's interesting. Yeah. It'd be fun to find a platform that can allow us to do this exact scoring.
Kind of like a safe leagues.
Yeah, I guess you could do that. Yeah, go into safe leagues. I've actually never played on safe leagues. That's something that I kind of want to try out. But I think it would be cool to play out like a full management season where you can trade with this scoring. Would be pretty wild.
Yeah, for sure. So, guys, I think that we've really hit on a lot of good strategies and some awesome insights from some vets and people that have actually won some divisions. JD, that was awesome and really great that you've taken down the division, and also Mark, who he's taken down some big dogs too. And I think that you guys provided some great insights. But wanted to talk a little bit away from the strategy. And now that we, other than Trav, I think that you're going to get the Misfits Boys division, buddy. That's where you're headed for sure.
That fits. I'm cool with that. That fits me.
Yeah. But want to be a dentist.
Wanted to see
toy over here.
Wanted to see if we've thought about team names. I know a lot of it's sometimes dependent on the players that we have, but wanted to throw it out there if there's been any kind of spitballing ideas on team names. Throw it over to you, JD.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much all my rosters are, unless there's a theme or something, are Goat District FC. But for this one, I got to go with what my boy MJ gave me with Optimus Goat. Rocking all that gear and not even put that as my roster name. So I'm gonna go with Optimus Goat.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in on that too, since we're in the same division, and it's Mapletron or bust for me. And I'm probably playing my cards a little bit for our boy Chase Claypool from lovely Abbotsford, BC.
You're just gonna endear yourself to him, if anything, buddy.
Oh yeah, totally. So I'm 100% settled on the name, mostly just to continue this rivalry that JD and I have started. All in good fun, of course, and really excited to be playing each other. So, what about you, Jimmy? Thought of some team names?
Yeah, so I usually go in with a standard team name, and then I change it up when I get a draft. I like to switch it up weekly, but I used to switch it up weekly, but it gets kind of confusing if you're trying to make trades with me, so I'll probably just stick with one. But I usually go in with the friendly Canuck, but this time I'm going to go in with a tribute to two greats there with Chase Claypool and Kobe, and I'm going with the Maple Mamba to start it off.
I like it.
I love it.
I love that.
I love
beautiful.
it.
I haven't thought of any because I haven't been placed in a division or gotten a draft spot yet. In case anyone wanted to know.
Trevor, you sure you're in the tournament, right? You got the email?
Shut your fucking mouth, Will. Yes, I am. All right. Yeah, no, I was actually stoked for Hot Wheels because there's like I played with Hot Wheels. You had the car mats out with your buddies, pretending like this is your crib over here, this is his crib over here, and you're gonna drive. So I was pumped about the Hot Wheels for that. And there's so many like cool names for the cars.
Ty's still doing it. Like he's still playing.
You're gonna get the American Doll division.
Yeah, they brought their fucking
that would be awesome. That would be awesome.
So, Ty, do you still have one of those car mats? Because I'll come over and play.
Oh, geez.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Save me a dime. I need a dime to call
laundry.
Ma.
You get the laundry.
Yeah, call Ma.
What you do is you get the laundry detergent out and you pretend it's snowing on the car mat. You get the laundry detergent out, and then it's a snow day all over town. See, that's what us in BC had to do to replicate you Ontario weirdos. They were just like, shut the fuck up.
Are you sure it was?
It's like every day. Get out of my face.
Yeah, another white.
I don't know. I only drove in the summer.
Put around or what?
It was nice.
Ty, and you're still divisionless too, right?
I am. And I think I'm just going to be that classic guy who's the worst and sticks with like Tyrell's terrific team all year. Won't change the game. There's always like that one guy in the fantasy league who just doesn't change his name all year. And you're just like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy?
Oh, man.
That's awesome.
But, seriously, but I'll do the, like, you know, a pun on whatever division I get in, or obviously a player team name. What do you guys think of I'm in the Tragically Hip division in the CFF whatever. And my team name is fully completely wrong. And
you're so close to having the real name. Like you couldn't have just done it, man. Oh, man.
Is it BL? Is it BL? Am I just missing the
CNBBCL, man?
Talk about your team, jeez.
Carry on.
Fuller completely.
At least you know we only have one quarterback in that division.
Spectacular team name.
True.
Probably one of the greatest albums.
Don't worry about my team names. I'll have a good one.
That is true.
My team name in that league is not fitting. I call myself Cold Calculations, and there is nothing cold about my calculations. And I guess the last you can say like last place is cold because it's not fire. That's for sure.
Hey, your charity is going to get some money, so that's good.
My team name in that is Corderelia, because I fucked up and accidentally auto drafted Cordero Patterson as one. So I figured the team name had to go along with that, and Cordelia happens to be my favorite hip song, so I thought it worked pretty well.
That's a win-win.
I still got. I know he's not on here, but I got
not
Chirp
sure
Connor
about
there.
win on that one, Willie.
At least you drafted Cordell Patterson, still better than taking Teddy B as your only quarterback in a super flex basketball.
Bold strategy call.
The worst is you guys are going to lose.
Guys, Teddy.
You guys are going to lose to Blow at High Falls. So.
I think Teddy
you have David Blau
might be a quarterback to target in the Scott Bowl.
I think you're right too. He's going to be efficient. There's going to be short targets to DJ Moore and CMC, easy ass completions. I really like the Teddy B call, Ty.
Yeah.
Okay, man. I thought we almost made it out of this thing.
I didn't it's going to be a similar system.
But
I was really hoping he made it out without saying his name.
Have divisions.
Yeah, you guys are divisionalists, so
yeah. So what we say doesn't matter.
Why don't we? I know that. Okay. Oh man, we're what shirt is that? That's
one he won. He said with
that's
with the 69 on the back.
I got Batman battling out.
Those are awesome.
I got an Eagles.
What was that other Funko?
Guy.
Hey, what was that other Funko? Hey? Is that the Karate Kid?
That's GSP. He said.
No, it's
GSP. I was like, what is that? Is that Daniel Russo?
We've got a few questions here, guys, from Twitter, and I think that since the divisionless people can't talk about their names, it's probably a good time to answer some of these great Twitter questions that some of the True North fantasy football loyalists have written in with, and I know that they were pretty pumped that JD and Mark were going to be on the show. So Chaboy J. Rich writes in, and he wants to know who's a player in the first 3 rounds you absolutely cannot draft or you will suck. I need answers. What do you guys think? I'll throw it over to Ty. Who in the first 3 rounds you cannot draft or you'll suck.
Okay, I'm gonna take an outside of the box answer here because I hate answering questions the way they're asked for some reason. But I'll say any tight end who's not an elite tight end. So Mark Andrews falls into this bucket, in my opinion. I also think any quarterback outside the top 20 and whatever your rankings are, these are the players to avoid in Scott Fishbowl in the top 3 rounds. That'll be my answer.
Love it. JD, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking, there's guys that are obviously, it's hard, right? Because the guys that I'm looking at that might not hit are guys that are at a position that are going to be very valuable in this tournament, like the Aaron Jones. CEH is risky, right? You pick up a guy like CEH. I love the situation, and I love, as much as Trav was saying, like, you don't want to get too risky and all that. I feel like, again, this might be my poker background, but when you're playing an MTT or you're playing in a big tournament, you kind of want to take those risks. You want to have that team that's completely different. Anyone that plays DFS understands, like, those the $1 million whatever on a weekly. You got to have the most obscure. You got to have like Rex Grossman launching the ball to, I don't even know. I'm trying to think who was even catching the ball back when he was playing, but you really want to differentiate. And Ty, you were asking when we first started this show, when you're building your roster, are you thinking like to get to the playoffs, or are you thinking to like win the whole thing? And I feel like now that I think about it, I'm going to play this thing to win the whole thing. And I want my team to be different and differentiate, and have those advantages on a weekly basis. So again, it's all about being fluid and making that advantage based on how your opponents are drafting. But I think that might actually be the key to this whole tournament.
I love it. Trav, what do you think?
Hank Basket.
Yeah. Hey, don't you besmirch Hank's name, all right? Don't you besmirch Hank Basket.
Hey, he remembers him because he only remembers Rex Grossman because he almost beat Peyton Manning in the Super Bowl.
Almost, really, almost. Did you watch that Super Bowl?
So for me,
I watched the kickoff return for a touchdown, turned her off, baby.
Yeah.
Better than with the kickoff, with the offside, the onside kick.
That's right. Okay, boys. So I'm going to bring us back on the rails just a smidgen here, if that's cool. My guy that I'm not going to draft in the first 3 rounds. Actually, I think Big Willie style, I saw a comment on that post, and one of them was Devin Singletary. And I think if anyone's taken Devin Singletary in the first 3 rounds, they, I don't know if that was you, Goat.
I posted that. Everybody's saying, what are you talking about? Hey, I've seen it in best balls. I've seen it in dynasty drafts, startups. People are taking him in the top 3, man. Do not take that man.
No, don't tell him not to take him. Go ahead and take him. If you're in the Rubik's Cube division, go ahead and take Devin Singletary in those first 3 rounds.
Another guy that sketches me out a little bit is Jonathan Taylor, actually. Whereas in like a regular redraft, I'm going to be hammering him. Nothing wrong with JT. I just think there's a lot of potential for his early season to be a little bit bumpy. So I think if I like top 3 rounds, right? Top 3 rounds for me, if I'm taking a running back, needs to be a stalwart with solidified work. And I just don't think for me that Jonathan Taylor's work is that solidified yet. If we see it going, like obviously the drafts are soon enough, so we're not going to see like training camps and things like that. But for me, there's just it looks like as opposed to Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I think early season as rookies, I think Clyde probably gets more of that work, whereas JT is probably going to have to share some time until he establishes. And in the first 3 rounds, I just want a little bit more certainty than that. I say this as like a very risk averse player. You can ask Ty. He says that he's never seen me accept a trade that I lost. So I think that's kind of how I'm playing. Is I just want to take.
But even if you want to get risky, even if you want to get risky, you probably don't want either one of those 2 guys as your RB1. You know,
that's
like
fair.
if you're RB2, maybe they give you that upside in this type of tournament that you need, but definitely not as your RB1, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think the difference for Clyde is that, I think he's one of those guys who, depending on how the draft falls and where the tiers are at in the draft, he's one of those guys that, okay, I will take that risk on a guy like him. Whereas Jonathan Taylor, as if it gets to the back of the second round, that's a little bit more sketchy for me. So I might be looking for maybe somebody at a different position who's a tier above. But I think, it's going to be interesting to watch that.
It's the floor that he offers versus JT, who doesn't because the pass catching, right?
Which is super funny because in Dynasty, I actually have JT over Clyde. So it's total deviation from my regular philosophies. But I think that's the beauty of Scott Fishbowl is it just makes us think different.
Mm-hmm.
It's just different.
Ty's like,
Jimmy,
no.
Anybody else other than Singletary, you're a hard pass on in the top 3 rounds?
So this is going to be a little shocking to say, but just because of where he's drafted, I mean, you're not going to suck, but it's relative to where you're going to take him and the positional value I see him going at, and I really think it's Kyler Murray. I think a lot of guys are going to be reaching on Kyler, and I just think, especially in this scoring format, I think the positional value here, you're going to find that you could probably hit somebody else, wait a little bit, and grab a quarterback that's either equal or better than Kyler is going to be. Like I said, you're not going to suck. It's hard to say you're going to suck when you have a Kyler Murray, but I think you're going to fall short of expectations when it comes up to the ADP value that you're going to have to place on him in this scoring format.
Hey, just real quick, Jimmy, I like that because you're probably going to have to take Kyler early second round. And when we look at the scoring for SFB 10, Kyler Murray was the quarterback 8 last year, and he was the quarterback 13 in the Scott Fishbowl scoring. So that's your second round pick that's finishing outside the top 12 at his position. So I like that. Like, I like how you said, you're not going to suck, but at the same time, just be cautious about where you're drafting him because in a normal dynasty draft, I've seen him go up at the 106, and I got no problem with that in a super flex league, but not in this format, right?
Not in this format.
I don't think he makes it out. You guys think he makes it out of the first, Murray?
No, I don't. I don't. But I think he should make it out of the first based on this scoring format.
He will.
So FFPC, he's going in the 12th spot right now in the FFPC as the QB3. So if you think about the nature of this tournament and how often those QBs are going to go, he's going in the QB3 or 4 in pretty much every draft I've been in. So I feel
it's either been
out of the first.
Him or Dak has been the consensus QB3 that I've been seeing.
But change my answer, Trav. I'm going to go Josh Allen. Josh Allen probably is.
You took my bill, man. You took my bill.
Sorry, Will, but you know what? You're going to steal all my players in that turn anyway. So
just remember,
I gotta get some, man. No, but you got to think about.
You guys are right. Those quarterbacks,
right? Incompletions, interceptions, now being drafted at his ceiling. There's so many red lights with Josh Allen, so he'd be my pick as the avoid. Sorry, didn't mean it.
That's perfect. I didn't want to slander Bill's Mafia anymore. We've been hard at him. Wanted to look at a question.
They take everything on the chin. Don't worry.
I take everything through a table.
Yeah. Our boy Josh Nelson, who we're super pumped to have on the True North team, he writes in with. Who is your biggest riser after pouring over scoring format for SFBX? I think that I might be able to kind of sum this up for all of us pretty nicely and wrap it in a bow. And I don't think there's anybody else that raised up higher than Drew Brees on everybody's boards with the scoring format. Tell me if I'm wrong.
No,
No,
you're
I think
right.
you're right, man. You're right. I think it's evident in the fact that all of us said that we would take Drew Brees in the first round, right? I think maybe it's boring for all of us to have the same answer, but I don't think that's the wrong answer. There's not necessarily a wrong answer because fantasy is a matter of opinion and luck. But I think Drew Brees has got to be the one that stands out the most.
Yeah, I would.
And honorable mentions, I would say Cousins and Bridgewater are my two.
I like that.
And one guy we haven't mentioned that I've loved until now, and
he's gonna bring it up, aren't you? You're gonna let out the bag on my quarterback, aren't you? Like, here it is, right here.
I'm not going Minshew. I'm going.
It's not Minshew
because I feel like Jimmy G is going to get disregarded. I mean, here's the thing, right? Jimmy G was a buy for me big time until now. Obviously, Debo's gone, so he's going to. I'm just saying this. Like Ty mentioned, people overreact. I feel like Jimmy G, because of Debo not being there, is going to drop very significantly, and he's still one of these more accurate guys that are going to be playing a shorter. Like he's not necessarily going to be slinging the ball and throwing interceptions. Ty, I'm going to give it to you because it's got to be something way smarter than what I have to say right now.
Sorry, no, I just my problem is my phone died halfway through this and I'm outraged because it was plugged in, so that it doesn't make sense. But long story short, I just wanted to put my hand up like, hey, Will, throw me in after JD. I'm coming in because there's like a slight lag. But what I'm saying is Jimmy G embodies almost everything we've talked about tonight, where he is a guy we're bumping up the board in this format, but he's also a guy who, once Debo returns, which is imminent, whether it's early in the season or not, he will be back eventually. And he's a guy that once he's back, we could see that offense transform like it did once post Emmanuel Sanders trade last year. And he's a perfect guy. That's all I want to say. And you've said everything you've said is perfect.
Totally. Lower volume, high yak from his receivers. I like that pick a lot, and an efficient offense that gets guys open and will allow for maybe a higher completion percentage. So good call out on that one, Goat. Give me a goat on that, Goat.
It's music to my ears.
I love it.
Can I'll give you one. I'll give you one.
He's got something brewing.
Man, I'll bust it out because I'm sure by this point it'll still remain a sleeper. It's Matt Stafford, man. It's Matt Stafford. The recency bias of his broken back from carrying an organization that clearly doesn't care about him. And his points per game are unreal. Like, he was the QB6 points per game, and he's another guy that you can grab late and you can stack. He's a great QB2, I think, in this super flex format if you're going to go top heavy, man. He was part of the team that had the only team that had two wide receivers in the top 5 in red zone targets last year, and Kenny G and Marvin Jones, and one of those guys was tied for, like I said, I believe it with on your pod there, JD, that Marvin Jones led the league in red zone touchdowns, tied with Michael Thomas with 8, but he did it in 3 less games, 8 less targets, and 6 less receptions. So he's boom or bust, but clearly with Stafford there, and Stafford's going to be the one everyone wants Galladay, and there's guys like me that are taking Marvin Jones late, but the linchpin in that is Matt Stafford. So like I said, he is a guy that I'm going to be targeting late when I go top heavy.
I love it. The next question was about quarterbacks, but I think that we've really hit on it, boys, in the quarterback department, and just how important it is to get the right one and seek some value there. I think to end it off, I think it would be fitting for us to talk about who we're playing for. Fantasy Cares, obviously, a great charity that Scott Fish has done, but he's opened it up for us to be able to donate to anybody that's out there, given the uncertain times that we're all facing in our communities, and there's a lot of good causes out there. So throw it over to you, Trav, and then go Ty, Jimmy, and JD if you want to give the charity, and then I'll wrap it up for us, boys.
Sounds good. Yeah, thanks, Will. So I actually, Cam H, you mentioned it earlier, the Center for Addiction and Mental Health. So when I first got the invite, I was stoked. I think everybody, you know, it's Christmas morning when you get that email and it's got the little fishbowl and says you've been invited. It was actually a great email written out by Scott this year. And so I went and I donated to the Center for Addiction and Mental Health then. And I'm not necessarily sure exactly where I'm going to go for more stuff. I do want to donate some to Fantasy Cares. And then we as a group over at True North, we actually talked in the group chat about all kind of throwing down a little bit to make a nice little sum on behalf of True North. So something in the works. We will announce it probably, but I'm not 100% sure where else I want to donate yet. I do want to give some to Fantasy Cares. And then I want the True North crew to do something kind of as a team there. So that's where I'm going. And I just love the spirit of this. It's really cool. So Ty, where are you going at?
Definitely the Human Fund, of course. No, I'm kidding. For all the Seinfeld fans or anybody who's not, you know, super old, I apologize. But I hadn't really considered it, to be honest, because we have been doing the whole logistical thing. Like, we're going to do something on behalf of True North Fantasy Football. And I'm very excited to do that because if anything that we can represent Canada, it is, you know, the good nature that we all carry. I think I'm going to actually just jump on a bandwagon, whether it's St. Jude's or whether it's even Toys for Tots or, I haven't really decided is what I'm saying. But I've also thought of looking into something about research development because I truly believe in like the environment and, you know, research and development and things like that. So maybe I'll do something unique and cool. I'm kind of waiting on us getting together and deciding what we do on behalf of True North Fantasy Football, though. But I can't give for Fish is done and PIs and what they've done with St. Jude's. I just think these are the people that I've always tried to emulate when it comes to how you carry yourself in this industry. And I know I've kind of flied in the face of that with having some drinks and whatnot on camera tonight, and I apologize for some of my cut-ins and outs, but I'm new to this video, so a lot of angst there.
It's all gravy.
JD, get me off the hook here. Get me out of here.
Well, you're good, man. You're good. Yeah, like similar. So I've been very active with Fantasy Cares, just with the eliminators and, you know, the fishbowl and the potathon. Shout out to Sal and Kev. And we participate every year. And I was explaining to you guys before we went on air, my participation has been kind of sketchy the first 3 years. So I'm trying to make up for it this year. Again, we'll be on the Monday morning, nice and bright and early. So when you grab your coffee, you can come on and see us on there. But those are the two main ways that we have been participating with regards to fantasy. And because of this whole situation, it's something that I'm actually looking into. And I've actually involved my wife and my daughter, and we're kind of looking at, we're narrowing it down to a charity that we actually believe in and care for, and maybe moving forward, help out as much as we can, whether that's time or money or whatever that is. So it's nice that, these little fantasy leagues that we're in ignite the fire in us to be better, right? And that's kind of what it's all about. So that's where I'm at with where we're looking at donations.
That's awesome, Goat. And Jimmy.
Yeah, so I'm obviously going to give a donation to Fantasy Cares. That goes without saying. When I got that email that came through, I was pretty ecstatic. It's just like everybody is, I'm pretty sure. But I donated, and I'm going to plan to continue to donate to a local charity of mine that is near and dear, and that's Food for Kids Niagara. I know I don't look it, but at one point I was a skinnier fella. But like I said, I've never had the trouble of ever going to school hungry or wondering where my next meal was going to be. So I can't imagine what these kids go through, but Food for Kids Niagara makes sure that kids do get fed, that are going to school, that maybe aren't getting the right nutrition at home here in my personal community. So I actually see the money go right back into my community, and kids can't learn. It's been statistically proven that they don't learn on an empty stomach as well. So it's really important to me that the youth stays educated, because we need an educated population to keep growing, right? Like So that's for me. And if you guys want to find them on Twitter, they have a bunch of different branches. Food for Kids Hamilton, I think, is one. Toronto, they're all over. But so you can find them at Food for, it's the number 4, and then Kids, KIDS. Then when you get to that, a bunch will come up. But like I said, for me personally, I'm going with the Niagara branch, so it's NIAG. Yeah, so I'm actually playing for them in the best ball league there with the Gord Downey too, right? So I'm doing a lot. So hopefully I can win the Scott Fish Bowl division, and I've already made a pledge to say if I win that division, I'm going to put up another $100 to that charity.
Beautiful.
Awesome, Jimmy. All great causes, guys, and I think that we've hit on it a bunch of times, but it's really about us coming together as a community and giving back to the whole community and also our local communities, right, as a whole. So I'm super excited to be able to share out what True North is doing as a group, but as my own individual contribution and for the Canadian National Best Ball Champions League, my charity is going to be KMH, as I talked about, so about mental health and addiction. So really important. But again, there's no bad charities. And wanted to say a big thanks to you, JD. Thanks for coming on. If you guys aren't listening to his podcast at Goat District, it's one of the. It is a must. It's a must listen to. And if I can quote JD, if you aren't listening to it, you're doing it wrong. And that's for sure. All of the True North crew. We'll make sure that our Twitter handles are all in this YouTube video. But Trav at TCL14. We got Ty at TNFF. Tyrell and my boy Jimmy Nastic at Gold Jacket QBs, and got to give a shout out to Mark. I hope he's not detained somewhere in China, but wanted to give a big shout out to him. And you can follow him at Master June 70. He goes by Minshew Brofist, and again, super talented graphic designer. And again, JD, thanks for the wisdom today, man. I've definitely taken a lot of notes, and Mark as well. I mean, these savvy vets have been through this, right? They've had teams that have won, they've had teams that have lost. So I always look up to people that have been there before, and they're speaking the truth, and I know that they're honest, good guys. So give everybody here a follow, and wanted to just say thanks, and let's have a ton of fun in the Scott Fish Bowl 10. And I wish everybody luck. And hey, Ty and Trav, maybe you'll get your division sometime this month.
Whatever.
The Barbie division.
Whatever. Yeah. Hey, I'm down. I got 2 daughters, man. I'm cool with that. Just get me in, man. I got lots of Barbies upstairs. We got the Barbie camper. We got it all, man. I'm straight with that. Real quick, Will, just before you ride out, I just want to mention that, of course, go check out.
They're playing with their effing toys.
I'll wait. Real quick, I just want to make sure, you mentioned JD's Twitter handle. Definitely go out, check out the podcast at Goat District. And I'd be remiss if we didn't mention his host, Dan, who we have tabbed an honorary Canadian at Overhype Sleeper. That guy is fantastic analysis and human being wise. So
amazing.
Make sure you check out Dan's content. He's usually chilling with Goat. And then lastly, I just, anybody who is checking, anybody who's checking out this video, please make sure you give our YouTube channel a subscribe. It's brand new. We're trying to build the subscriber base. We want to set a good foundation for some video content moving forward. And we plan on having JD on a bunch more. So if he's the draw, just know that he'll be back again.
I doubt it.
Other than that, check out all of our work at TrueNorthFFB.com. We've got a bunch of guys joining the team recently, and we really appreciate those guys and just the commitment that they've shown to the brand. So that's just kind of my little True North plug there is, and I say that because I'm super stoked about the direction that we're headed. I really love this team. I love the styles. I love the personalities, and I love just the commitment to the brand. So I know, as a group, we really appreciate that from our team at True North. And then we appreciate the gracious appearance from the GOAT himself. So thanks guys for listening. Really appreciate that. All right, giddy up, boys. Peace.
That was fun, man.
Nice, guys.
Yeah, I love it.
Thanks,
JD. I actually want to talk to you a little bit about Curtis Patrick. You said you had him in your division last year, eh?
I did.
Did he? Do you know any tendencies by any chance? He's the 101 in my divion.
Funny because he's in my pros versus Joes too this year in FFPC. But look at his roster last year. So he was picking from. Let me see. He was picking from. Oh, he was on the 11 spot. So he was in your neck of the woods, right? You're at the end, no?
Yeah, I'm at the 9. I like to be near the end where I don't like you guys were.
Daughter, and we're kind of looking at we're narrowing it down to a charity that we actually believe in and care for, and maybe moving forward help out as much as we can, whether that's time or money or whatever that is. So it's nice that these little fantasy leagues that we're in ignite the fire in us to be better, right? And that's kind of what it's all about. So that's where I'm at with where we're looking at donations.
That's awesome. Goat and Jimmy.
Yeah, so I'm obviously going to give a donation to Fantasy Cares. That goes without saying. When I got that email that came through, I was pretty ecstatic. It's just like everybody is, I'm pretty sure. But I donated, and I'm going to plan to continue to donate to a local charity of mine that is near and dear, and that's Food for Kids Niagara. I know I don't look it, but at one point I was a skinnier fella. But like I said, I've never had the trouble of ever going to school hungry or wondering where my next meal was going to be. So I can't imagine what these kids go through. But Food for Kids in Niagara makes sure that kids do get fed, that are going to school, that maybe aren't getting the right nutrition at home here in my personal community. So I actually see the money go right back into my community, and kids can't learn. It's been statistically proven that they don't learn on an empty stomach as well. So it's really important to me that the youth stays educated, because we need an educated population to keep growing, right? Like so that's for me. And if you guys want to find them on Twitter, they have a bunch of different branches. Food for Kids Hamilton, I think, is one. Toronto. They're all over, but so you can find them at Food for, it's the number 4, and then Kids, KIDS. Then when you get to that, a bunch will come up. But like I said, for me personally, I'm going with the Niagara branch, so it's NIAG. Yeah, so I'm actually playing for them in the best ball league there with the Gord Downey too, right? So I'm doing a lot. So hopefully I can win the Scott Fish Bowl division, and I've already made a pledge to say if I win that division, I'm going to put up another $100 to that charity.
Beautiful.
Awesome, Jimmy. All great causes, guys. And I think that, we've hit on it a bunch of times, but it's really about us coming together as a community and giving back to, the whole community, and also our local communities, right, as a whole. So I'm super excited to be able to share out what True North is doing as a group, but as my own individual contribution, and for the Canadian National Best Ball Champions League, my charity is going to be KMH, as I talked about, so about mental health and addiction. So really important. But again, there's no bad charities. And wanted to say a big thanks to you, JD. Thanks for coming on. If you guys aren't listening to his podcast, the Goat District, it's one of the. It is a must. It's a must listen to. And if I can quote JD, if you aren't listening to it, you're doing it wrong. And that's for sure. All of the True North crew. We'll make sure that our Twitter handles are all in this YouTube video. But Trav at TCL14. We got Ty at TNFF. Tyrell, and my boy Jimmy Nastic at Gold Jacket QBs. And got to give a shout out to Mark. I hope he's not detained somewhere in China, but wanted to give a big shout out to him. And you can follow him at Master June 70. He goes by Minshew Brofist, and again, super talented graphic designer. And again, JD, thanks for the wisdom today, man. I've definitely taken a lot of notes, and Mark as well. I mean, these savvy vets have been through this, right? They've had teams that have won, they've had teams that have lost. So I always look up to people that have been there before, and they're speaking the truth, and I know that they're honest, good guys. So give everybody here a follow, and wanted to just say thanks, and let's have a ton of fun in the Scott Fishbowl 10. And I wish everybody luck. And hey, Ty and Trav, maybe you'll get your division sometime this month.
Whatever.
The Barbie division.
Whatever. Yeah. Hey, I'm down. I got 2 daughters, man. I'm cool with that. Just get me in, man. I got lots of Barbies upstairs. We got the Barbie camper. We got it all, man. I'm straight with that. Real quick, Will, just before you ride out, I just want to mention that, of course, go check out.
They're playing with their effing toys.
I'll wait. Real quick, I just want to make sure, you mentioned JD's Twitter handle. Definitely go out, check out the podcast at Goat District. And I'd be remiss if we didn't mention his host, Dan, who we have tabbed an honorary Canadian at Overhyped Sleeper. That guy is fantastic analysis and human being wise. So
amazing.
Make sure you check out Dan's content. He's usually chilling with Goat. And then lastly, I just, anybody who
soda,
checking, anybody who's checking out this video, please make sure you give our YouTube channel a subscribe. It's brand new. We're trying to build the subscriber base. We want to set a good foundation for some video content moving forward. And we plan on having JD on a bunch more. So if he's the draw, just know that he'll be back again.
I doubt
it. Other than that, check out all of our work at TrueNorthFFB.com. We've got a bunch of guys joining the team recently, and we really appreciate those guys and just the commitment that they've shown to the brand. So that's just kind of my little True North plug there is, and I say that because I'm super stoked about the direction that we're headed. I really love this team. I love the styles. I love the personalities, and I love just the commitment to the brand. So I know, as a group, we really appreciate that from our team at True North. And then we appreciate the gracious appearance from the GOAT himself. So thanks guys for listening. Really appreciate that. All right, giddy up, boys. Peace.